Hi, welcome to the fourth episode of Just Game Masters, Part 2, with our discussion with Nelson from Infinite Roleplay on 13th Age. Enjoy!
I had collected and created a library of 13th Age pre-mades that I have available on my Infinite Roleplay Facebook. I've got like 40 or 50 different characters made there. But yeah, I really enjoy 13th Age. If I had to choose between 13th Age and 5th edition, it's an easy choice. I choose 13th Age.
Okay, that's cool. So this is the other thing I had heard from my friend Adam, is there's only 20 levels in 13th
10.
Age, or 10, only 10.
Mhm.
So I know it's hard to gauge, leveling, because there's some GMs.
You have Dungeon a Day?
Yeah.
I've bought something from you before.
I'm Dungeon a Day. Wow.
Well, it's okay. So it's hard to gauge because there's some DMs who are like, you level when I say you level, or, do the calculate your XP thing. And my friend Adam had mentioned to me that you could get to level 10 in a year or something like that. It doesn't sound like it would be, the type of campaign that would last for more than a year, I would feel. I mean, then again, everybody levels at their, own pace or runs games differently or whatnot. I mean, do the characters become like way too powerful by level 10, or why do you think they only stopped at level 10?
First, like I said, it's a power fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
and your damage, you're rocking a longsword. Longswords for your character, you're a fighter. Or this is just examples off the top of my head. Say you're a fighter, right? You start off level 1. Your favorite weapon that you love to use is that longsword, that sword and board type of style. So your longsword does d8 damage. Level 2, it does 2d8 damage. At level 3, it does 3d8 damage. As you go up by level 10, you're doing 10d8 damage with one attack, with a longsword.
Right. Yeah,
So there's only 10
shit ton.
levels because it really scales really fast. As far as pacing, I hate experience. Hundreds of experience there, thousands of experience there. I'm a fan of systems that, look, you get 1 experience per game. If you do something amazing, you might get another 1. Because it's easier to mitigate, but I wouldn't see why, if you're running a game, you don't do something like that.
Okay.
Every 3 sessions, maybe you go up a level. But it's not really so much, because it's so significant, I wouldn't really worry about, I guess you're saying, progression, having the characters feel like they progress.
Mm-hmm.
But almost everything in this game is situated as a suggestion, like in the book. I mean, I approach games like that anyway. But what I appreciate is that in the 13th Age book, they often have lines of text that say, well, we suggest this. Maybe you should do that. How about this? It's less hand-holdy in the way of, you must run our game like this. And hey, run the game you want. Even if you don't run 13th Age, we have a couple of cool concepts that are easily portable to any other game if you want to use it. That approach to the game, I really, really appreciate. And rewards could simply be, if you don't give them a level, but say they achieve some sort of milestone in your game,
Mm-hmm.
instead of a flat level, like a flat mechanical level, you can toss them another icon point.
Okay.
Or maybe say, you know what? I think you've used this background so much. Here's another point that you can spend in the background. Don't even worry about the maximum ranks.
Right.
Those are all decisions as a GM you can make. But since the game on the GM side is so easy to do, you could just throw them their way. And those are actual role play things. Like, the mechanics of those are role play oriented. So it's just like, here, role play more. I want you to role play more. Here's a role play reward, not a mechanics reward, but it's a role play reward. And guess what? You could use it mechanically. Ta-da!
Nice. So how would you... Branden, I know you had this complaint in the past about games where your character at level 1 is, how would I say, not Superman, but already, I'd say hero level, and Nelson, it's
What problem do I have?
well, when I ran fourth edition, like a game or something like that, or something.
Oh, no. What happened was you had a guy, the fourth level could do all these super heroic moves, whereas first edition, you're basically a 17-year-old with a sword. go have fun. Yeah, all these moves that no 17, 18-year-old person should be able to know how to do. But I mean, it's not a big deal. How does that connect to 13th age, though?
Well, in 13th age, it seems like you're kind of, well, not a powerhouse, so to speak, but you're kind of like very, very competent and like unlike some games, you start out as, a potter who has a chicken and a stick. Go fight stuff. In 13A, it just sounds like you have that power from not the chicken, but you
Yeah.
have.
Well, the problem I had wasn't that technically 13th age. That's how it is the 13th age. I'm fine with that. My problem was the fourth edition. They put the Dungeons and Dragons title on it, but it didn't feel like Dungeons and
Oh
Dragons to
God.
me. And that's my problem with that. I mean, Risk has very powerful characters. Look at Glitter Boys, and you have useless vagabonds. So it's the same idea. It's all about expectations.
Yeah, like what I was saying before. Yeah, I said preconceived notion, but I think expectations is simpler and more to the point.
Yeah, exactly.
It is. It's like I said before, the way the rules in the book in 13th Age are set, it's very power fantasy. At level 1, you get your listed amount of hit points times 3. So you're not going to start with 10, 12, 8, 4, 3 hit points at level 1. You're starting with like 15, 20, 25, 30 hit points. You're pretty tough. But like I was saying before, it's so easy on the GM's end of 13th Age. You can really have a character, though they may feel powerful, you can still press them. You can still frighten them. You can still frighten your actual players with the deadliness of your game just by how you approach it.
Okay.
If you're throwing a goblin, you don't need to use the goblins straight out the book. You have a chart at the end, and you can just say, all right, I have a goblin shaman. My goblin shaman's throwing a lightning at you. He's riding a warg and forming, motes of power in his hand, and you see electricity starting to burst from his arms. His eyes begin to glow and crackle. He opens his mouth to laugh at you, and as he's laughing, instead of laughter, you can hear the clapping of thunder ushering forth. Your player's gonna be like, what the fuck? And then that alone can make people nervous. He doesn't even have to be powerful, but that alone can make people nervous. Then if you decide that this goblin is a level 4 monster with level 4 sort of listed damage and abilities and whatnot, and your characters are level 2, level 1, level 3, then you hit them with something and it hurts, then they go, wait a minute, I thought I was a badass, So they have to think differently. Yeah. It's just how you approach the game.
I have a question about magic items in 13th Age. So when I was playing 4th edition, and please stop me if I'm talking about 4th edition too much, but that was actually the first D&D game I played, and since one of the creators, what's the lead design for D&D for E, I will come back to this, but I remember that it was difficult to do stuff without gearing your characters properly in 4th edition. And you mentioned, 13th Age is already like a, power fantasy type of game. I mean, magic items in 13th Age, do they work similarly to 4E? Do you have like the +1 stuff that does, that has traits or stuff? Or do you how do magic items work in 13th Age?
That is my weakest point in 13th Age and in pretty much any game, because I don't believe in magic items. In
they
4th
exist.
edition, I know in 4th edition, I never used magic items as a player, and I never had a problem with it. I never had power creep issues, didn't have to build for magic items. I tended to know about the rules and power build within the rules.
Okay.
Anything else is just gravy on top. But like I'm opening up to a page here where it says rings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the bonuses for rings is a defense ring, right?
Right.
It's listed as a recharge 6+. So it's one of those things that you have to roll a d6 to see if it recharges.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get it, when you take damage from an attack, you can prevent 10 damage from that attack. Now, it scales up depending on the tier of play. Whether you're Adventurer, Champion, or Epic, it has quirks. I don't know too much about magic items. Let me say again, but it doesn't seem like it's sort of game-breaking or a necessity, because there's so much you can do off the bat that, to me, it's like gravy on top. It's a fun little addition.
Okay.
And they seem more like additional temporary powers.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Magical shield, increase your maximum hit points by 4 for adventurer, by 10 for champion, and 25 by epic. The adaptation: whenever an enemy attack hits your physical defense or your mental defense, you gain a +4 bonus to that defense until an attack against that defense, including the bonus, misses you, or until the end of the battle. That to me doesn't sound like it's overpowered, it's broken. If that's what you were getting at.
Right.
Yeah.
I was getting into it a little bit. Also, I think Bren, did you have any questions about the setting itself?
Oh, probably a lot of them. I mean, it's a fantasy world. How developed is it, if at all?
I don't know, man. I don't read settings. I make my own.
Okay, that's fair. So
You just-
that being said, so 13th Age easily adapts to your own setting.
like I said before, it's written almost like it's setting agnostic. Almost. They'll have like a city here, a city there, and go, hey, this is kind of what the city's like. Have fun. They actually have setting stuff, like setting books that go a little bit more in depth, but it's like here are our ideas. Use what you want, add what you want, have fun.
Okay.
It's, to me personally, that's how I feel these 13th Age products are presented, how they're written. It feels to me like it's like, hey, we got some cool ideas. Have fun with them. Or not. All good.
Cool.
And you mentioned there are expansions or setting books for 13th Age. Are they all fantasy, or is there a sci-fi variant?
No, I do believe they're all fantasy.
Okay.
But 13th Age is actually an OGL product, so you may find some sci-fi, or maybe I'll write some sci-fi in the future.
Post-apocalyptic or something, or
Yeah, because
Okay.
I actually am writing. I'm writing stuff.
Like-
Settings, rules. I've got a chart, a critical hit chart that I'm working on for 13th Age to make it feel more deadly. So a critical hit chart that actually bypasses your hit points.
Okay.
It's like, no, you don't take double damage, you lose a limb. Things like that. I want to add. I've already implemented, but I want to add officially to the world of 13th Age.
Oh, I remember critical role charts. Those are, I don't know.
Critical
Those side, they're
That's true.
awesome. Oh, they're awesome. Hey, look, you can deal double damage, or you can roll randomly on this critical hit chart to see what happens. And you're like, you done gimped his leg, you shattered his knee, he's limping now. Well, that's cool. If it's an enemy you guys are trying to get away from, guess what? Now you can get away from them.
Yeah, but what happens when it happens? Well, of course, it's going to happen on your side also, wouldn't it?
Like I said, there's things such as that to get rid of that super power fantasy feel. Your characters still have all the powers that they have, but you get rid of that tree chopper syndrome, where it's like, oh, I've got 72 hit points. I took damage, but I still have 30 hit points remaining. I'm good to go. You could have 150 hit points. If you get crit and you lose your hand or you lose your arm, that's going to make you second guess
It ruin your
all
whole
those
weekend.
hit points. It's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have been the sorcerer to run right in front of the dragon and go, hey, you, I'm going to fuck you up. Like, it makes you think about combat. Like, this is not 13th Age related, but my problem with a lot of players is they don't approach combat as something that needs to be roleplayed, when it is probably the most intense roleplay you could have.
Mm-hmm.
Put yourself in the place of that character. What would you do with a 50-foot tall dragon that looks like they could swallow you whole, or at least bite you in half? Are you going to run up and go, here's my longsword, which to you is the size of a needle. A needle's not going to kill me, but my longsword will kill you. Like, what sense does that make?
Yeah, that's true. I actually have a I have a warlock that just runs up to everything and.
See, I used to play like a wimp. I had a wimpy character. He was a wimp in combat. He always remember Tricky, my rogue.
Yeah.
He didn't like combat, and when he was in combat, he'd do whatever he could to do the least amount of work possible because he was too afraid to get hit, and it worked. He's still alive.
It all depends. It's just something that, as a whole, seems lacking. Like, I've played with plenty of people that are freaking amazing, and they actually approach combat in very role play ways, and they think. But I've also played with people that just run up to something and go, hey, it's not gonna kill me, I'm level 5.
Yeah.
Like in 5th edition, I've actually ruined people's day with a CR half while they were CR 12s. So, like I was saying, it's just how you approach a situation.
Right.
13th Age is geared to be a power fantasy. You can easily run it as a power fantasy because it's built to be run mostly as a power fantasy. But just by using some of the environmental hazards, some traps, like you can have a trap, make it a trap, and just describe it as an environmental hazard. Hailstones are falling from the sky, roll a physical defense, or you roll an attack against their physical defense to see if they get hit with a hailstone, and just deal the listed damage. Little things like that can actually wear on your players the full heal up. Okay, the way they do rest, because nobody asked me how they do rest.
Explain to us how they do rest. Also explain to us how they do death afterwards, actually. I'm kind of interested in that, because I skimmed through this book, because
All right.
I'm lazy.
Rest, very much like 5th edition, you have your short rest and you have your full rest. A full rest is not called a full rest, it's called a full heal up, because that's exactly what it does. But it does the same thing in 5th edition. You take an 8-hour nap and you wake up right as fucking rain. In the book, it suggests that after every 5 fights, you give the players a full heal up, whether they actually rest or not. Because like I said, it's built like a power fantasy, but it's a suggestion. It is not mandatory. You don't need to give them that full heal up. That adds to the grittier level. Also, because the characters are so centered around their special abilities, and some of their special abilities can only be used once per day, or once per combat, or are recharge related, resting is more of an issue during gameplay. Fuck with their rest, and you fuck with the grittiness of the game. Okay, that's one. But resting, all right. The normal, straight, short rest after combat, a few minutes of, whew, damn. That's a short rest. You can roll your recoveries, it's called in 13th Age. You get a set number of recovery dice, you roll those, you consume those when you roll them, and you add hit points back to your character. A full heal up is like a night's rest, and you get reset. Everything gets reset. Your hit points come max, your powers come back, and whatnot. So it's very, very simple, it's very easy to do. Healing during combat is very much like 4th edition, where it's based on recoveries, and it's called rallying in 13th Age. You can rally once per combat. It's a roll to see if you can muster up enough courage to rally and heal yourself a bit, which is spending recoveries. Or you can have a cleric that has a few lower level spells to make you spend recoveries, or gives you free recoveries to use.
What happens when you run out of recoveries?
That's your ass. Simply put.
Okay.
If you run out of recoveries, you need a full heal up. You need that full night's rest.
Right. Okay.
So if you're in the middle of a dungeon and you're like, yeah, we're dungeoneering, we found a room, we can take a nap now. No, only if you have a really, 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 really nice dungeon master is that ever going to happen.
I'm a really nice dungeon master sometimes.
Yeah. To my own detriment, I am, but I have been planning to change that.
So have I for 10 years.
So, no, I'm already. My last 13th Age game, I was like, look, I have this custom chart here. It's crits. You could choose to use a crit. I'm going to choose to use a crit every time I get it. Just letting you know. Be careful, because I will fuck you guys up if you do dumb shit. If your characters, if your character starts to cave in, probably going to lose your character. I don't even have to do hit point damage. Guess what? It's a cave in. You're suffocating. Roll last gasp. Oh, damn. We didn't even touch on last gasp saves. Okay. We'll get to that in a minute.
I don't even know what those are, but please explain them after.
Resting. We did resting, right?
Yeah.
You've got your, that was close. Short rest and the full rest. Done. Death. When you die, you roll a d20. If I remember correctly, it's 11 plus is a success, a 10 or lower. Flat roll, unmodified, a 10 or lower, you're done. If an ally takes an action to help you out, it counts as a success.
Okay.
Automatically, no rolling necessary. However, the first one to get to 4, either 4 failures or 4 successes, you're done. 4 failures, you're done, you're dead. Goodbye, make a new character. 4 successes, you stabilize. You're not dead, you're just out of the fight. And in 13th Age, you're never truly out of the fight. You could always fight in spirit.
Spirit, okay.
Yeah. So you can spend your actions. You can either spend your action to roll your dice to see if you come closer to death. If you don't, if you don't try to stabilize, you move one step closer to death. If you are stabilized, you can fight in spirit, which is encouraging words that might give your allies a bonus. So depending on how you feel as the GM, you can give them bigger bonuses and whatnot. Oh, your ally is down. How are you guys playing? Well, we circle around him. Billy, Bobby, Timmy, Joe, hold back the lines of enemies. I'm going to tend to his wounds. So you're tending to his wounds. It's an automatic success. The guy fights in spirit. He's like, get them. Coughing up blood or whatever. Or, ushering the other heroes in the group to fight harder. So the DM says, you know what? I'm going to give you guys a +2 to everything you do now. Because you're attending the situation, you're helping your ally, you're doing good tactics and battle formation. You guys are great. I'm giving you a +2 to all your rolls this round. That's pretty much like how you can use the fighting in spirit.
Oh, that's cool.
If you die, you're dead.
Yeah.
Handle it however the hell you want to. Now moving to last gasp saves. The death saving throw is pretty much like a last gasp save. Last gasp saves, why is that so hard for me to say, is let's say a Medusa, a basilisk stares you down. You make eye contact with the basilisk. You then have to start making last gasp saves or be turned into stone. The way it's handled is 4 failures, you're done. You're dead. You're gone. So it's usually a 16 or higher. It's unmodified. Saves in the game are unmodified. You don't add anything to a save.
Okay.
So if it says an environmental effect that's difficult, 11 plus. If it's really hard, a 16 plus, because you add nothing to a save. So in the last gasp save, depending on how deadly you really want it to be, you can go easier on your players and say, 5 plus, you're good. But if they fail 4 rolls of 5 on a d20 in a row, they're done.
Okay.
So you can turn somebody to stone, or you can have them fight a giant and just say, you know what, you got hit so hard by this giant, it doesn't even deal damage. None of your hit points are removed, but now you have to start making last gasp saves as you're coughing up blood.
Okay, that's cool.
So you can mitigate some things. Like I said, you could pick and choose what you want to use within the game. Much like anything else. But the way it's constructed, in my opinion, is a lot better than certain other RPGs like 5e Dungeons and Dragons, where 5e Dungeons and Dragons, you get hit by a giant, it does 30 damage to you. I've got 150. That's not a big deal. You get hit in 13 you get hit by a giant. I could do this damage, but you know what? He doesn't do any damage for you. You can feel your ribs cracking and crushing under the weight of this tree you just got hit with. Make your first last gasp save.
How many people have you actually killed in the 13th Age game?
13th Age? I haven't run that many. Why? You just gotta ask that.
Because I feel like it.
I've killed, I think 4 or 5.
Wow. Okay. I'm
But
I got
I've only run, well, here, in one game I killed all but 1, in another I killed like 1, and in the third I killed like 2.
Okay.
But like I said, I mostly go easy. You laugh. You don't know. I am a very dark, and I have a sadistic mind. I believe in a real role-playing game, it should represent a real world, and real worlds are really deadly.
Right.
If I throw you in a situation where it's storming, thunder, lightning, pouring down rain, blankets of rain are just ushering from the sky, and you're in the middle of this forest, this clearing, you have this epic battle set up, and the crack of lightning explodes behind this figure on top of this beast, silhouetting them, blinding you almost for a second, and then combat starts ensuing. Well, it's like, all right, you're fighting? Cool. This round you take a hit from this larger creature. It's not a last gasp save, but roll me a save to see if you slip on the ground because you fall into the mud. Okay, it picks up mud, throws it in your eye. Now you can't see. What do? You're going to take your action to clear away the mud? Well, try to clear away the mud. Roll me a simple save. Give them a chance to not get all the mud out of their eyes because their eyes are stinging or whatever. All right, you just lost your action for that round. Are you going to try to do it blind? Guess what? It's going to be a lot harder trying to do it blind. There's water and lightning. Oh, there's lightning in the sky. He's going to command the lightning to strike you. Roll a last gasp save because you just got hit by an actual lightning bolt from the sky. Things like that. it's how can you walk away from things like that at the end of the encounter? If you're smart, if you play it well, if you guys are all working together in tandem with each other, looking at the clues, setting up situations, it's something that you can overcome. And at the end of the encounter, at the end of the day, you're like, whoa, we have an epic story to tell, you know?
Yeah, I'm way too. You think you're nice? I'm way too nice. As a GM, but I usually care too much about my story. That's the problem. That's the thing. I'm not a power gamer, but I love story and I love weaving stories. So.
Oh, no, don't get me wrong. I adore that. Like, okay, one of my first online games with 5th edition, my first two, I ran one thing that I wrote twice in a row. They both ended up in TPKs, and I only used about half of what I had. But
Did
in
you
the
write
story,
Tomb of Horrors?
huh?
Did you write the Tomb of Horrors for 13th Age or something?
The horrors?
Tomb of Horrors.
No, it was 5th edition.
No, I was joking. You make like a Tomb of
Oh.
Horror style game where no one gets through it.
No. It wasn't set like that. Using the encounter builder to make sure it was balanced. It was a hard encounter at the end, and it killed them. It was a medium encounter right before the boss fight, and they had the option of circumventing the medium encounter with a custom-made sort of. I usually don't do regular puzzles. I like doing practical puzzles where they had this altar. Now, I made it myself. It's not in the 5th edition. But they had an altar that was surrounded by these frostbitten corpses. And they would hear throughout the entire time the wind blowing through these tunnels. And I didn't even have them roll constitution saves for freezing to death, even though they were walking inside of, in essence, was a glacier. You know, a frozen glacier where the wind itself froze over. So I went easy on them there. So they were hearing, follow, worship, kneel, and all this stuff, right? They found these frostbitten corpses in concentric circles around this frozen idol. Nothing happened. They walked closer. Nothing happened. When they tried to walk away, the floor would actually start freezing up on their feet to trap them, so that they would stay there and worship. Once they started using powers with light or powers with fire, the frostbitten corpses got up and were staring at them saying, worship, kneel, kneel, worship, praise, and all this other stuff. And they were taking damage from wind. The actual corpses were not damaging them. Every time they killed a corpse, it would reanimate again. They found out that the frostbitten flesh was not over any muscle or sinew or bone, but actual just frozen ice. Ice was wearing the corpses of people. And yet, whenever they destroyed, it would reform. Nothing they did would stop these corpses. But these corpses never raised a hand against the players. They were just taking damage from freezing wind that was like blowing around and everything. And, they eventually figured out that it was coming from the shrine. They destroyed the shrine and they were rewarded with an offering, with a frozen gem, The offering was, follow, kneel, worship, and all this stuff to give to the people that were the medium encounter that were going to screw them right before the boss. But the solution was also, I do this a lot. I do solutions and riddles and traps are usually all intertwined with each other. The solution was a trap. So if they touched the gem with their bare hand, they started taking freezing damage.
Oh.
The closer they got to the boss battle, the more damage they took from the gem. If they attacked the gem would attack back, much like it did when it was part of the shrine. However, if they gave the gem to these frostbitten, frozen kings, the kings would allow them to pass into the chamber where the boss battle would ensue without fucking them up. One guy was a dragonborn, a white dragonborn. He just happened to be a white dragonborn, so he wasn't taking as much damage, but he was taking damage. And the second group, one guy decided he was going to pick it up with his bare hands. It hurt him. He threw it onto the floor. It retaliated, and then he kicked it. So he wasn't happy with himself dying from that. He didn't die, but I mean, it was retaliating. It was messing him up.
Right.
The smart aleck in the group said, yeah, I'm going to take my pouches and just, yoke him up in the pouches. So he never made contact with them. They bypassed, things like that. Like, you're smart. It's freezing. Okay, you touch it, it does damage. It was doing damage to you because it was inside the shrine. hopefully, but it's just the person and their level of applicable senses. It attacked us. We have it. I touch it. It hurts. I throw it on the floor. It retaliates. Should I cause it damage yet again? If you do, not a good idea.
Right.
But he was very upset at the fact that it was, and I don't think he's a scientist, but whatever. The guy that doesn't touch it doesn't take damage. If you don't hurt it, if you don't try to destroy it, and I was telling them they were doing arcane checks or whatever, and I was saying it's actually solidified, frozen wind, but I never made them roll Constitution saves for wind being frozen within them and turning them to ice inside out, like the corpses that they were presented with.
All right. So I think we should wrap up, I suppose. I know that last part wasn't, 13th Age related. I'll find a way to...
I could go on like forever about stuff. All right. You want to bring it back to 13th Age?
Yeah, let's bring it back. Branden,
there's actually more 13th Age. All right, cool.
All right, so bringing it back to 13th Age. Is there anything you can think of that we haven't covered as of yet?
Rituals.
Do they work the same way as they did in 4E?
No.
No. Okay. What?
Well.
Give me, yay.
Generalized. Yeah. You see, it's. You don't really need to know the spell. You don't really need to know the ritual.
Mm-hmm.
Rituals are very role play centric.
Okay.
All right. So if you start performing a ritual, it says like right here, right in the book. Most spells are available to clerics, sorcerers, and wizards are either combat spells or useful in combat. But our vision of the world is that many spellcasters use magic outside of combat for varied effects that aren't properly handled by a literal reading of spell lists. Right?
Okay.
So basically, it's like, hey, the literal shit is for fighting, the roleplay shit is for not fighting, right? It's just pretty much stuff. If you take the ritual casting feat, you can do rituals. Without reading everything here, the gist of a ritual is what you would think a ritual really is. Sitting by, mixing ingredients in a cauldron, getting several people to encircle and holding hands, chanting and stuff. It's something that takes an exorbitant amount of time for like epic levels of effect.
Right.
Take the same scene with the pouring sheets of rain and the lightning crackling and lightning striking an enemy. Well, you can actually, if your player wants to do something like that, they're like, I want to create a ritual that summons a storm to set up for the battle, and I want to complete the ritual when the storm's like, okay, that's going to take about a week. You have a month to go. It's going to take a week of the actual ritual, the casting, the constant enchantments. Somebody always has to be up saying the words. So you're like, all right, cool. Then you go, all right, you need these ingredients. You can turn the ingredients of a ritual into quest items.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Like, okay, for this ritual, you need the heart of a newborn dragon. You could just say that as a DM. You need the heart of a newborn dragon. And that becomes a quest. That becomes a one-shot or a mini sort of arc to hunt down and grab, to find and slay a newborn dragon and steal its heart. And so on and so forth. But at the end of all that, you can allow your player to basically get an immense amount of agency to describe how they're summoning a storm that encircles an entire battlefield where the lightning strikes the actual enemies.
Okay, yeah.
Instead of the allies.
That's pretty.
Things like that.
That's pretty cool, actually. Yeah, I didn't think about rituals in that sense before. That's really interesting. I'm just glancing over the ritual page right now of the book, and yeah, I mean it. I've always encouraged like spell and item creation for my own player. So, I mean, having something like that would actually be very encouraging of that fact. So we've covered rituals, death, icons, backgrounds, other things that we've spoken a lot. What? And I don't know if I would explain this correctly. So, do you see 13th Age getting any bigger than it already is. When I look at the Wikipedia page of 13th Age, it says that 13th Age encompasses like 2.6% of all D&D related D&D related sales. I mean, do you see this eventually becoming a bigger thing? I mean, we have the major players like Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, I among other things. I don't even know who the top like 5 RPG sellers are currently. Probably like Fantasy Flight and Star
Yeah.
Wars RPG and stuff like that. I mean,
I s-
where do you see 13th Age settling, so to speak?
I would hope it gets a larger audience. I'm a fan of it, but I think the fact that it's similar in certain ways to fourth edition, and that even the notion of fourth edition comes up when speaking about 13th Age, would make it a little bit difficult for people to digest. They'd cast judgment on it without giving it the time of day, which is unfortunate. If they can get past just that notion, 13th Age, man, it's way better than 5th edition
Okay.
by leaps and bounds. You just have to get past that notion.
Mm,
You know, anything you can do in 5th edition can be done in 13th Age.
right.
You know, people like the fact that, oh, proficiencies. Am I proficient in this skill? I add my proficiency bonus. You know, they think that that's a boon. You know, your background is basically your proficiency in anything related to that background. You know, it rewards in 5th edition, they say, if you role play really well, guess what? We'll give you an inspiration point. In 13th Age, if you role play really well, you can pretty much get anything you want done.
Mm,
You know, if you role play really well, check this out. Wizards. As wizards level up, one of the talents they can get, I never say it right, but it's like monosyllabic something or other.
okay.
It's a role play centric talent that advises the GM to give mechanical rewards. So, depending on how you cast your spells, you get rewarded for it. You
Okay.
get mechanical benefits for role playing. You know, if I'm casting, Sinuloc's scintillating sphere of infernal doom, right? It's
Right,
like,
right.
all right, well, that sounds like it'll do damage over time to me. I'm gonna add damage over time to your fireball. You know,
Right.
it 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 pushes you to reward role play in a way that fifth edition can't come close to. Paizo has completely ignored, and things like fourth edition and stuff, never touched on.
Mm,
So if like I'm saying, if people can get past that small, almost insignificant hurdle, the fact that fourth edition would even come into the conversation, they can get past that and just look at it for what it is. I've had a player that played a rogue that one of the skills that they can do is they take their action and they go invisible. They disappear. They role play how they disappear this round and can come back anywhere nearby the next round or whenever they feel like. They thought that was the only way they could hide. It's not true. You can hide. You can do all that. That was just something that was exceptional.
right.
You know, if you role play how you hide exceptionally, then you just disappear. You're not even part of the combat. You cannot be affected by anything going on, and you can reappear whenever you feel like.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
You know, things like that, they're awesome, but they're not limiting. They're just extra coolness. You know, sorcerers can still cast spells, but they can do something called gathering power. So they gather their sorcerer's power so that they use their action to gather their sorcerer's power. You roll randomly to see if they have extra effects of gathering and condensing so much power in one place. And in the next round, their spells have double the effect. They deal double damage. They just have double effect. You know, things like that to me need to be in gaming because they're awesome.
Right.
You know,
Well, you have certainly convinced me to try to get into maybe a 13th Age one shot or a 13th Age campaign. I'm doing 2 games right now, and hopefully I can make room for a third somewhere.
Sick.
But So it was great talking to you today. You are, again, a wealth of knowledge when it comes to 13th Age, even though you claim to be, weak in some areas. You can't be any weaker than my knowledge. So I'm very happy you joined us, Brandon, taking that work call. I'm very happy you joined us. I'd love to have you again at some point, maybe to talk about even like map creation or something of that nature, or
Word.
how to, I know you mentioned that you think you're a nice DM, and I must be a saint compared to you if you think you're a nice DM. But it was great having you, and I hope that we have you on again very, very soon. Um, so I'm gonna stop the recording right now.